The House of Representatives passing a $715 billion transportation and water infrastructure bill, also known as the Invest in America Act. The vote passing 221 to 201, 2 Republicans voting in favor with the Democrats. Joining me now, Tennessee Senator, member of the Senate Armed Services Commerce Committee, Judiciary and Veterans Affairs Committees, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, your reaction to this bill?
The Democrats are beginning to do some polling. They're figuring out just how unpopular their process and their ideas are with the American people. And Dagan, they're saying, we've got to do something on infrastructure. So this is what they're doing. They know the American people do not want to spend $3 trillion. And they also have figured out the American people do not call elder care, which of course is important, child care, which of course is important. They don't term that as infrastructure. They term roads, bridges, railways, runways, waterways, and broadband as infrastructure. So they're trying to get something across the finish line. But here again, what do? They focus on the Green New Deal, and they put a bill out there that is twice what it ought to be. At the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation, we did a surface transportation bill that was about $350–400 billion, and that is a much better number. Plus, there's plenty of money in the pipeline to reposition and pay for this. You do not need new funding.
Senator, Rich Lowry writes in terms of this bipartisan true infrastructure deal that was cobbled together over in the Senate. Rich Lowry from the National Review writes today, the GOP should abandon the bipartisan infrastructure deal. And I've actually been saying this all along. The GOP has nothing to gain from blessing a portion of President Joe Biden's spending plans when an ungodly amount of money is going to go out the door, regardless of whether they vote for a chunk of it or not. And in fact, Republicans getting on board with a compromise that until he tried to walk it back, President Biden said, I'm not going to sign it if it's not attached to this massive $4 trillion or so spending. But it greases the wheels for reconciliation. You put together this bipartisan infrastructure package, and it frees up reconciliation for the spending blowout with those very entitlements.
Well, that is correct. And that is why this ought not to be considered as we're going to do this package so we can do an even bigger package. And I wouldn't call it bait and switch. I call it fraud, because what they are doing is saying, okay, we're going to let you say you negotiated this on infrastructure, but with a wink and a nod, Joe Biden, I guess his filter is gone, because he tells you what they're thinking about doing or what they plan to do. It doesn't matter if the issue is voter fraud or if it is infrastructure. Dagan, he is telling you what they're trying to do. They're trying to rope Republicans in so they can say, well, you're a part of this, and we know roads and bridges need to be fixed. We in Tennessee certainly know that. But we are not going to go along with something that lets you break the bank for our kids and grandkids.
Right. Your reaction to this: media outlets and the White House are pushing this talking point, claiming that Republicans are the ones who want to defund the police, not the Democrats. A Washington Post headline went as far as saying the squad supports police more than Republicans. I think they changed that headline. But, Senator, this is a gasp of desperation by the left, by the Democrats, don't you think?
Oh, not only is it a gasp of desperation, it is so disrespectful of the men and women in uniform. There again, the Democrats are polling. They realize defund the police is viewed as something that is pro-crime, and that they are being perceived as being light on criminals and tough on citizens. And that is not what the American people want. I had a Tennessee mom sum it up for me. She said, I want the streets safe, I want my country free, I want my kids to be learning real American history, and I do not want them to live with two tiers of justice, double standards, one set of rules for thee, a different set for me. She said, I am sick of this. And I think that she is pretty much right on target. People have had it with what the Democrats are trying to throw at them and act like they think that they're stupid. I mean, it's like the things with Hunter Biden's laptop. These guys, the Bidens, thought they could get by with this type of in-your-face corruption because the Clintons had done it. And that there is a set of rules for the elite Democrats, and then there's a set of rules for regular, everyday Americans. And Dagen, people are smart. They have figured this out, and they're tired of it.
Well, the Republicans worked awfully hard to make sure that justices were appointed on the Supreme Court, particularly, yes, lastly, with Amy Coney Barrett being confirmed as a justice. And yesterday, in two rulings, one on free speech, the other on free elections, but on the free speech issue, so the Supreme Court rejected California's requirement that charities report the identities of major donors. The New York Times categorized it as siding with conservative groups. Well, let's just point out that the ACLU, the Human Rights Fund, PETA, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the NAACP all filed amicus briefs saying that California's law should be overturned for violating the First Amendment. Now you have Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, longtime member of a whites-only club, upset about this, who he's in the past called for packing the court, and he's tweeting about all the dark money that's behind this, despite the fact that these were, to say the least, left-leaning liberal groups who also sided with the individuals who filed this case in the first place. Sheldon Whitehouse shrieking about packing the court. Senator, what say you?
The Democrats were very upset that there were constitutionalists put on the Supreme Court and on the federal court system. Over 300 judges that we approved from Senate Judiciary during President Trump's time. Now, Dagen, here is the deal. When Sheldon Whitehouse wants to talk about dark money, which is one of his favorite topics, he goes out there and he talks about conservative groups. He doesn't want to talk about Democrat dark money. He doesn't want to talk about Act Blue. He doesn't want to talk about some of these groups that have fed in to pushing the Democrat agenda. And I think that we should talk about who these groups are that are pushing this radical leftist agenda with Marxist ideologies, and we should root this out of our country. We are a nation of laws. We believe in the rule of law. We are a government of, by, and for the people. It is not here to be a government for the elites or for the Democrats to get their way and to have their set of rules, their set of justice, and something else for everybody else.
Thank you, Senator Marsha Blackburn.
You got it.